We're in this moment today, and we are going to be talking about retention or semen retention. And I made an illustration right here, and this is what we're going to be covering today. This is a sort of more simplified guide to retention, semen retention, whatever you want to call it. But I made an illustration here, and I made quite a few points. Looks like we have 6, and this is going to be more of a simplified guide, more of an easygoing guide. I'm planning on making a few more of these kind of videos that's really touching the basis of semen retention and really just covering it in all of its entirety. And I do want to make a few more guides. This one's more of a simplified, more of a simple, more of a kind of more broken down version, right? Like it broken down into more simple terms. And so let's get started. So we have our illustration right here, and basically we're going to start with the sexual mind. So what is the sexual mind, right? The sexual mind is the mind that is basically, it's taking some form of sexual imagery, whether it's lust, sexual fantasies, sexual ideas, right? Maybe scenes and imagery that you've had with a partner in the past that you're thinking about, or maybe like a dirty video you watched, right? These are all things that'll take place in the sexual mind, right? The sexual mind is right here, right? And it creates turbulence. It creates turbulence up here, and kind of where all of the the imagery is taking place, all of the thoughts, all of the ideas, the imagination, the visions, and so on, right? And you have fantasies, and you also have like running game on women, right? If you're a man, or man if you're a woman, right? And what does that really mean? What are the implications behind running game, right? Like, what does that mean? Well, that means that when you see an attractive person, or you see somebody that you're drawn to, that you put on like an act, you put on a sort of facade to gain their attraction and to get little attraction points, so that maybe you can get little hits of your ego, so that maybe you can feel maybe better about yourself, or you can just get their little hits of attraction and validation from the person you're trying to get their attention from, right? Like in public or school, or maybe at work, right? Just maybe wherever you go when you leave the house, right? Maybe the library, but you put yourself out there to get attention, to get little hits of validation, to get little hits of dopamine, and this really draws from your energy force, right? And this can really be a part of the whole sexual mind, because maybe you're doing this to, get their attraction and to get their number, or to maybe deep down, in the long run, maybe you want to hook up with them, and maybe you just want to like get them activated, and you want to turn them on, so you get into character, you put on the whole facade, you put on the whole act of trying to look good, trying to look appealing, and trying to have some sort of sexual appeal, right? With the way you dress, with the way you conduct yourself, with the way you act or portray yourself, right? This is called a running game, and this can be a part of the sexual mind, right? It could play a part of the sexual mind. So, right, that's the sexual mind. Right, and then we go down closer to the diaphragm, and this right here, the core, that the interconnectingness from the sexual mind to the sexual core, right? That's your diaphragm, right? You see that little, right, the sexual core. What is the sexual core? Well, the sexual core is, a place where, feelings such as horniness, arousal, sexual excitement, butterflies, all of these sensations, all of these bodily sensations exist. They all, reside in this location, of the body, of the temple, right here, the sexual core, right? Butterflies, all of these things. These are all of things that get activated. These are all of the emotions, the bodily emotions that get activated, right? In kind of your sexual core, the center of your being, right? The center of your body, the center of your temple. People call it the sexual center, the sexual core. It's kind of like where your diaphragm is, right? And all of these feelings, these bodily feelings, take place. They occur in this location, in this center, right? So it's, when you get a little hit of excitement, when you get a little hit of, it's like when something happens where you get sort of turned on, you get activated, right? Maybe you see some imagery on the internet, or you see somebody dressing kind of provocative in public, right? For example, this can get you activated, right? This can create some sort of feeling within you. It could spark and it can ignite a sexual sort of feeling in your core, whether that's arousal, whether that's butterflies, whether that's sexual excitement, feelings of horniness, right? It's like any of the, just looking at something, some imagery, or maybe a really attractive woman or a man. If you're a girl, maybe you see an attractive guy, and it just sort of ignites, sparks that like sexual sort of fire inside of you, and that'll be located in your core, right? The center, your sexual core, your sexual center, that gets ignited. You get activated, and in that moment it feels good, and you get all of these little bodily, you can get any of these little bodily sensations, right? So it starts as a sexual thought in the mind, right? Whether that's lust, like a thought or a fantasy, starts right here. It goes down it shoots down from the mind to the spine, and it goes into the sexual core, the center, like your diaphragm, right? And it formulates in there. And there's turbulence that gets created in your mind, whether that's a lustful thought, a fantasy, whatever, and it shoots down from your spine into your core. And the turbulence, transpires, it builds up, and you start getting these feelings of arousal and horniness and so on, right? But what really happens is it goes down from the core, and it depends on how much, you're filling up your tank, because you have a tank it has its limitations. It has a max capacity as far as how much it fills up, and once it fills up to a certain level, then it spills, right? And then it goes down from the core to the where the dead energy exits. And this occurs, it manifests itself as a wet dream or as pre-ejaculation. When your tank fills up, when your tank is all the way filled up, it comes down from the core all the way down to the bottom, right, to the exit, which is, your your private area, and it exits itself through the body as dead energy once your tank fills up all the way and it reaches its max capacity, right? And then it comes out in a wet dream or pre-ejaculation, right? And that's dead energy. That's when your tank fills up to its max capacity. What's your tank? Well, your tank is the tank in your body that contains all of these sexual energies, like your fantasies, your thoughts, the lust, any of that stuff that I wrote up here, right? It builds up and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up to a point where it reaches its max capacity and it drains, it spills, and it spills through the exit of the body and it goes out. So that's that as far as the body, right? How the body takes place with retention or with semen retention, and these are kind of all of the implications to what I drew, in the meanings. So, things to channel the energy, because the energy gets very intense, right? When you're on retention or semen retention, it gets intense. There's like this intensity that gradually builds up within you, right? And it skyrockets depending on, what you're doing, your code of conduct, how, your activities in everyday life. So I wrote down some things you can do to, relieve that tension, to relieve that sort of overstimulation that you get from retention. So I wrote down, you can work out, you can serve other people, you can channel this energy into art and creativity, you can channel it into meditation and yoga, you can channel it into content creation, activities or hobbies that are more, physical, that are more grounding, I would say that are better when it comes to channeling this intensity, when it comes to channeling this sexual energy, right? Physical, grounding, meditation, yoga, exercise, these are hiking, these are things, or physical labor even, these are all things you can really channel that energy into, more physical, more grounding activities, right? And then I wrote the points up here. We got 1 through 6. So these are all sort of like tips, pointers to sort of navigate through this journey and to really help you grow in this journey and evolve in this journey. Because maybe, there's a lot of people who are watching this that are maybe struggling right now with retention and trying to maintain their themselves and keep going on this journey, but they're struggling because maybe they have bad habits or bad or vices, or they just keep failing or relapsing. So I wrote some points to sort of keep you on track, to sort of keep you more focused and to keep you more balanced and more easily sustained on this journey, right, of retention. And I wrote the first point, stop watching porn and naughty things and bad things. So what is that? What are, just adult content, NSFW content, hentai, just dirty things on the internet that maybe you shouldn't watch, or maybe isn't really good. It's not a great idea to watch. or it's not really going to be conducive if you're on retention and you're watching these things. It's not really going to be conducive to your journey on retention and your growth on retention. So yeah, you don't really want to watch these things because it can create a more restless mind, and it can create higher levels of temptation, such as manifesting these thoughts that take place in the sexual mind, and then strengthening your sexual core and stimulating your sexual core, right, with these thoughts, because then it travels through the mind down to the spine to your core, right, and it just creates a lot of more turbulence. So then it kind of weakens your spirit too a little bit when you watch things like that on the internet, or you watch things in general like that. It weakens you in a way where you're more open to lust and fantasies that can take place in your mind. So, and it can, if you're thinking about these things, and it really can draw, and it can really drain a lot of your energy force that's within you. And one thing can lead to another. Maybe you watch some adult content and then you want to go beat off afterwards. Or maybe you want to go, go have sex. Because one thing can lead to another, like a domino effect. And maybe if you see one, piece of imagery, it's gonna possess you to go do the next thing. Maybe you want to go call your friend to go hook up, or you want to go do a Tinder hookup, or you want to go beat off in the corner of your room because you saw too much adult content. So number 2 is you stop looking at women, right? And overstimulation. But looking at women is like when you step outside in public and you look at a woman, there's like this magnetic pull or gravitational pull that can happen within you, where you step outside and you could see an attractive woman and you just go in that direction, you look at her, right? And maybe it can be very benign, maybe it can't be. It really depends on the individual and why they're doing what they're doing. So, but when you look at a woman, then this creates an opening for the woman to, check you out, and then you start to run, maybe you start to want to run game on her, maybe she wants to try and run game on you, or maybe you're just looking at her lustfully, or you're objectifying her, right? And that, again, can create a more sexual mind, So, and then overstimulation is anything that's overstimulating, like a concert or a rave, or maybe, substances that are overstimulating, or an environment that's overstimulating. These things can really sort of, draw from your energy source or your energy force, and it can really not be so grounding for you, and it can create more of like a restless mind. And when you have a restless mind, maybe you gravitate towards, looking at things, or, doping, or, looking at women, or looking at things on your phone or whatever, because it's not so grounding when you do certain things, and it can create more of a restless mind, make you feel more restless, and so on, right? One thing can lead to another, and it can maybe weaken your spirit, weaken your little guard that you have for yourself, right? The guard that protects your sexual energy, and it keeps you grounded. Maybe it weakens that guard for yourself. So overstimulation, anything that, drugs or environments or people, or, whatever that's overstimulating, that creates a rajasic state of mind, an overstimulated mind. So that's that. Number 3 is transmute the energy. How do you transmute the energy? We are back. My camera died. My apologies. But I wanted to wrap up this video. So we left off on transmute the energy. Number 3. Or wait, so transmute the energy, creative practices, physical practices, I think are the best practices in regards to transmuting that sexual energy and finding that release. When there's a buildup in your sexual energy and it creates an intensity where you can't sleep at night, you're restless, your mind's racing like 1,000,000 miles per hour, hyperspace, and you're constantly having like the urge to like look at a woman or look at some imagery online or look at something to try and take the edge off, or you're like trying to take a drug or trying to dope or with whatever substance or material to take the edge off because the emotions and the energy is so intense, right? So you want to transmute the energy so you're not taking substances, taking vices, eating donuts or playing too many video games to try and take the edge off for yourself, because that energy is just so intense, it's so strong, it's so potent, it's running rapid inside of you, and you're trying to find that release, you're trying to channel that and take the edge off. But there's more healthy, more conducive ways to transmute that energy, to take the edge off and to kind of feel better about yourself, and not feel this intensity and energy. So, exercise, just meditation, yoga, art, content creation, things that are more physical, that are more grounding, I would say, are better, right? They're more conducive to transmuting, to transferring that energy and, taking the edge off for yourself. So number 4 is don't identify with the practice you're doing or with this practice. So, I think when a lot of people fail when they're on retention or even nofap, they count their days, they make videos about it, or they document it in some way, or they, count their 1,000th day or their 100th day. And when they do this, they are, it's like they are taking like pride into it, but they're also identifying with it so heavily, like their practice, their spiritual practice. There's nothing really wrong with identifying with something good that you're doing, something positive, something healthy, right? Like a good practice, a good healthy practice or spiritual practice. There's nothing really wrong with doing good things for yourself, but identifying with it can really distract you, and it can really draw from your attention. And when you're counting your days or you're identifying with it and you're telling you're documenting this journey that you're on, you're sort of more susceptible to kind of relapsing and failing, because you take so much pride into it that it's completely, it like creates an illusion and a separate little delusion for yourself, where you're over here focused on your appearance, focusing on your imagery, focusing on how your image is displayed for other people to look at, whereas you're not over here really just focusing on the practice itself and just doing the practice without having these attachments, without being identified with this practice, without taking much pride with this practice, right? And when you're doing it without these attachments, you're not, it comes more natural, it flows more natural, it flows more easy for you, and it's a more smoother and more easier process to manage and to partake in, right? Or to engage in, when you don't have these attachments, when you don't have these worldly attachments as far as how you appear by other people or how you're being portrayed, or just all of this. It can become very superficial, right? Because you don't have these attachments that are drawing from your energy force. You don't have these attachments that are drawing from you in general, right? And it can really take away from the overall experience when you're so heavily identified, in this human body and in this ego, right? And you have these worldly attachments, because then this creates a worldly level of constraint that can really take away from the overall experience, that can really take away from you and your practice. So don't identify with the practice. Don't count your days. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just do it and go with it. Don't think too much about it. Make this a part of, if you can make this a part of your lifestyle, and just, it's like it doesn't even become second nature. It's just like it's already just a part of you now, and you're just doing it. You're just flowing, and it's just going, and it just starts to become your default life, lifestyle habit when you're engaging in such practices, and it just, you don't care anymore. You're not attached. You're not worried about it. So number 5 is be aware of everything, right? Be aware of when you relapse. Be aware of when you don't relapse, be aware of when you're trying to, dope, and you're trying to look at women, and you're trying to kind of, relapse a little bit and take the edge off a little bit when doing anything, right? Like, be aware of when you relapse. Watch yourself. Watch why you relapsed, or watch when you relapsed. Watch your patterns, watch your movements, watch why you move the way you move on this journey, or just even in general, why you have these sort of impulses and these urges to like relapse and to, go do the bad habit, or go, deplete your energy force, or go do your vice. Like, watch why you move the way you move. Watch why, that thing is calling for you to go do that thing, the bad habit or even the good habit. Watch why, you feel why you need to go do it, and why, what's within you, that is really gravitating towards that thing that it's gravitating towards. Be aware of it. You can write, in your journal, if you need to, why you do the things you do, maybe, or why, you're called to go do these things, or why you have these patterns or these habits or these vices, and why you cycle the way you do. You can meditate, you can journal, you can make videos perhaps, to just try and check yourself, to try and watch yourself, and watch the way you do the things you do, and watch your patterns and your movements, right? And when you do this, you create a window of awareness, and the more you kind of throw more awareness into it and push more awareness into that window, the more that the window expands to where you're able to step through the window, and you're able to see yourself through the window, and you're able to see, and you're able to expand your level of self-realization, self-awareness, and consciousness, of the sense of self, and of why you do the things you do, and why, you have these tendencies and these habits and these addictions and these patterns, right, in your karma. So be aware of everything, or at least try to be aware of everything. Number 6 is don't be hard on yourself. When you relapse, when you look at that thing online, or you look at that girl or whatever, or you're lusting too much in your mind, don't be so hard on yourself. Take it one step at a time. Take it easy on yourself. A lot of us, someone who relapses, maybe they're like on day 350, whatever, and they just feel so bad about themselves. And or maybe they just feel bad in general when they're trying to lust, or they're trying to dope, or they're trying to look at some imagery online. right? But the point is to not feel bad about yourself, not to feel low, not to, feel so down about it when you mess up and you make mistakes, because mistakes are important when you are on this journey, when you're on this path. It's inevitable that you're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna make errors, and you're gonna slip up, and you're going to relapse, and you're going to look at things, and you're going to think certain things, and you're going to want to go back to your old habits and your vices, and you might relapse a bunch of times, more than you can even count, right? If you're watching this video, I don't know your journey. Every journey is individualized. It's individually different from one another. Everybody has their own unique, tailor-made experience for themselves that life is going to prescribe to them and give to them. So don't be so hard on yourself, because this takes away from the experience, because you're not focusing on what you need to focus on, and that's doing the practice. Because as long as you're doing the practice, then you have nothing to really worry about, whether you relapse, whether you fail, whether you make more mistakes. As long as you're doing the practice, then you're on the right path. And it kind of, when you feel bad about yourself and you're being hard on yourself, it kind of falls back onto the ego. It's all just self-talk. It's all just ego noise. It's all just food for the ego. It's all just noise for the ego, right? It's all just mental noise or blockage or negative self-talk. And it doesn't really mean anything. As long as you're doing the practice and you're engaging in the practice and you're consistent and you show up every day, then you have nothing to worry besides worrying about itself. You are on the right path, and just keep doing what you're doing. As long as you're doing it, you're good. You are living the life that you need to live as long as you're doing it. It doesn't matter about what results you get, what results you reap from this practice. As long as you're doing what you need to do and you're engaging in your practice, then you're where you need to be in life, and you are living your best life. It doesn't matter about the results. It matters about being in that moment and doing what you need to do. Whatever comes after, comes after. But you need to focus in that moment and do your practice and engage in that practice. But don't feel so hard. Don't feel so bad about yourself when you relapse. Just take it easy. Be kind with yourself. And it might take time, because a lot of people do have the habit of, engaging in negative self-talk or talking down on themselves. And it's something that they just have to work on. It's an individual experience. Maybe they have to work on it, on their own. And it might take time for them to work on that negative self-talk habit that they have, So, but, it can be nothing but a distraction when you engage in negative self-talk and, mental noise, and it's nothing but a distraction. It's nothing but food for the ego. So, number 7 is the last one. Avoid stimulants and things that weaken the spirit. So, caffeine is a good one, when you're on retention. And, all right, I accidentally dropped the sign. So I wanted to cut it out. But yeah, stimulants. Avoid stimulants that weaken the spirit. Caffeine, that's a big one, right? That really just creates more of a restless mind. It just creates more restlessness, right? And more motion in the mind, which can create, be a disaster recipe for disaster if you already have more of a sexual mind, right? If you're taking a stimulant that's going to exacerbate and create more noise, exacerbate the mind in a way where it's creating more noise, creating more motion, creating more thoughts, creating more restlessness, and you already have a sexual mind, it might be a recipe for disaster, because you might just be wanting to just look in so many different areas for a little escape, for a little hit of dopamine, for a little to take the edge off for yourself, right? Like, you're just looking around when you go into a room and you're like looking at every little woman, every girl, or whatever. Maybe you're scrolling on your phone and you're just like looking for something, right? You're trying to actively seek something out, because your mind is so restless and it's so shaky, it's so shaken up. And just things that weaken the spirit, like stimulants, overstimulating environments, substances, right? Just being around certain people, maybe, or a certain company that is maybe overstimulating, or maybe they're not so good, they're not that good for you to really be around or to really engage with. So I think that was everything I needed to cover in this video, in this topic. And there's benefits too. There's a lot of people who report that music sounds better. I mean, in my experience, music sounds better when I'm on retention. When I sleep, I have more dreams. I dream like a lot more, like twice as much as I did when I wasn't on retention. You have more energy. You have more of a lust and more of a drive for life itself. You have more motivation in life. Your confidence goes up, especially when you're talking to like very attractive women, or facing very attractive women, or just people in general. It doesn't really matter. Women can do semen retention. Anybody can do it. It doesn't matter, about your biology or your gender or your race or your species. I mean, anybody can do it. If you're built with the hardware to reproduce, then you can do retention. Anybody can do retention. It's just that women and men are wired differently, and sexually as well. But anybody with with sexual biology and a reproductive system can do semen retention, and they can reap the benefits from semen retention. So I think that was it. I think we're like at 30 minutes, or I don't even know anymore. I hope this video helped you guys. I'm planning on making more videos in the future about retention. This is more of a simple version and take on retention, and more of a simple guide, more of a broken down guide. That's more easy to understand, So I hope this video really helped. That's it. Bye.